I love DevOps Days conferences. I've spoken at a bunch of them. They're just, of all the conferences I've ever been to, these are the ones that I love to go to. So thank you for inviting me. And I'm happy to be here all the way from the US, Northeast. So a lot of flying to get here. Again, you already got the rundown. I am in application security now. I've been there for about 17 years. I started as a software developer in that industry and then moved on to more leadership roles. A little bit about the people that paid for my plane ticket and my hotel to come here. I'd be remiss not to mention them. I work for Checkmarx. We are an application security company. We help you find, fix, and prevent, most importantly, the vulnerabilities that are in the software that you write and run as part of your day-to-day job. Let's get into the talk now. Feedback. Feedback is one of the hardest skills to learn. And whether you're just starting out in your career or whether you are on the back nine like I am, it's one of those things that you constantly have to work at and you have to be present for it. Now, when you are giving feedback to another person, depending on who they are and the relationship that you have with them, it may mean that you have to make it very fancy and make it look very pretty, or if it's a close friend, it's something you can throw in a paper bag or just hand to them and say, here's your feedback. You have to understand the situation and that relationship. Now, we get feedback from many, many different sources. In the previous talk, we were talking about feedback from systems, unit tests, smoke tests, security tests. So I'd be remiss not to mention the second way of DevOps, which is, of course, amplifying those feedback loops, critically important. But we also get it from people. We get it from family, we get it from friends, we get it from strangers, whether we want it or not. And the way that we react to that is important in how we are seen and how we are judged in the workplace and in life. Now, we're all a work in progress. We're all broken. We all have stuff. And working on that stuff is something that you have to take ownership of. If you want to be better, that's something that you have to take on. Now, again, one of the things about feedback is we may be very good at giving it, but the people that are receiving it may not. So we always have to adjust and think about, is this someone that I have frequent interactions with? Is this someone that we generally exchange feedback frequently on? Because those things are going to change how you do it. Now, the genesis of this talk, I coached my daughters. I had 3 daughters, or have 3 daughters. Coached them for 15 years in soccer. From the time they were 4, little tiny things, all the way up until they were 19 and off to college. And, being dad, that's one thing. But with a bunch of girls, I'm a big guy, got a deep voice, big presence. And one of the things they would always remind me is, my friends are afraid of you, the soccer team. They're like, whoa, he said something, holy crap. I could be up in the bleachers when they were playing their high school sports and say their name, and those players would look up at me. They can't hear the parents, but if they heard my voice, they're like, oh, coach is up there, what's going on? So I always started the season with the title of this talk. I'm coaching you because I care. I'm coaching you because I see potential in you that maybe you don't know is there. You don't have to be bad to get better. So let that sink in for a second. This isn't about you're a terrible person or you did that poorly, or it's now the question of, well, could I have done it better? The whole Toyota production system is about, well, could I have found it earlier? Could I have prevented that problem from getting into the system, into those subcomponents that we've now translated into how we build software today? That's the thing that I want you to absorb, is understanding that feedback isn't meant to say you were terrible, because if someone's putting in the effort and putting themselves out there to saying, hey, I'd like to give you some feedback. And in fact, I practiced this just before with the previous presenter. I said, hey, would you care for some feedback on your talk? And we'll get into that a little bit more. Now let's talk about being kind versus being nice. Now, again, on the soccer team, I had this player, and it's less about the player than the parent. The player would make a mistake. Now, everything that you do, if you have a soccer ball and you don't score a goal when your team has that ball, there's a learning lesson there. There's something that went wrong. What didn't we see? What didn't we do? So anytime there was a mistake, it was an opportunity for me to coach. Now, not all the time, certainly, and I usually coach away from the ball, but this player would make a mistake, and immediately from the stands I'd hear, "It's okay, Emmy." Well, you just muted everything. Now it's like, don't worry about it, who cares, just play. If the reason that you're on the field, if the reason that you're writing software is because you want to be great at it, then I don't want that. What I want is the feedback. And by giving that message to the child, what are you doing? So there's a difference between being kind, which is like, hey, that was good, nice job, and then I walk away, versus being nice and saying, hey, I have some feedback for you, would you be interested in it? Now, I may be completely off base, my feedback might be completely wrong, but by not exposing myself to this and not offering this feedback, I'm just being kind. I'm protecting myself and not allowing the other person to get the benefit of what I saw, because we all have these blind spots. There's a podcast I listened to where they were talking about feedback and that iron sharpens iron. You must get into it. You have to have these conflicts. Now, hopefully they are well-meaning and well-received, but it can't be a pillow fight. That's not how you give feedback. The reason that you are doing it is because you see an opportunity for us to improve, either as a team or as an individual, maybe a presentation or what have you, but we want to be able to do that. And the next thing about this is this idea that everyone's the same. My daughter started a job, and she's excelling at it. She is outperforming every single one of the people in her team as a brand new employee. But ask for a raise. No, we need to pay everyone the same. If we are not in a meritocracy, if I have a development team and everyone gets paid the same no matter what they do, what's the drive for someone to exceed expectations? Well, they left at 2 o'clock. Why am I working now? Or we're working at home. Who knows when we're working? So you need to have this ability to say, I want to exceed because I have a lot of pride in the work that I do. But if in the office you see other people slacking, you have to pick up that slack. How long before you want to go find someplace else to work? I want to work with a bunch of people that are smarter than I am. I want to be able to climb that hill. Now, if we think about how we envision ourselves when we look in the mirror or when we close our eyes, and what I want to be is probably more aspirational, but we can't see that way. We don't see ourselves that way. And it's important for others to provide that feedback. We have blind spots. That's why they call them blind spots. Now, there's this thing called the Johari window. Now, this was a model that was created in 1955, if you can believe it, to think about our public selves, our private selves, things that we don't show to anybody, things that nobody knows, not even us. We can't see it, other people can't see it. And then this idea of this blind spot. And by asking for feedback, by going to your peers, by going to your boss, saying, how could I be better? How could that have been delivered in a better way? By asking, we can reduce that blind spot, because now we get the vision of others. And if we add to that, the telling, so having others give us feedback or giving others information about ourselves, we reduce that private aspect of ourselves that we don't share. So this requires a lot of things, safety for sure, but the more we can participate in this, the bigger that public window is. The more we are exposed, certainly, but the more opportunity we have to improve. It's also very common to want to bury your head in the sand. I have gotten some very difficult feedback, not just from work, from my wife, from my kids. I am not always the best self that I could be. I fail, and I'm happy to admit that. I'm not proud of it, but again, we are all the same in that matter. And be expected that when you get feedback, you're going to get thrown off balance and think about, well, all right, what am I going to do with this now? Do I agree with it? Which parts are true versus which parts are kind of their impression that maybe they don't understand the whole story. So if someone asks you for feedback and all you're expecting is a pat on the back, be careful. Brace yourself for what might be coming there. So the timing is critically important. If you give me feedback on something that I did 2 months ago, maybe it's going to be marginally helpful. But if you give it to me in a half hour or an hour or a day of the time that this occurred, I can be more clear-headed about what I was doing, where I was mentally, how I executed on that, so that way I can react to it and take that in. Again, think about the Toyota production system, the end cord. I find a mistake, pull the cord. Now is important. I don't wait for it to get all the way down the line like the American car makers did, to have a parking lot full of broken cars that needed rework. I hate rework, and so did they. But they didn't do the right things to understand how could we really improve versus how could we pretend that we are improving. Mindset, and there's a great book of that title, Mindset, thinking about yourself or others and how you perceive them. Whether you consider yourself to be fixed, I was born this way and this is the way it's going to be. Accept me as I am and that's it. Or do you have a growth mindset that says, hey, I made a mistake, I can learn from it, I can grow. Now this bit me in my career. So as a development leader, I was a director, I was managing a large team of software developers, and I made an error. It delayed my career. Now, my manager, my direct manager, saw me as fixed mindset, did not deliver the feedback, either because they were trying to be kind or because they thought I wasn't capable of change. And because of that, that delayed my career by at least a couple years. By the time I found out that that feedback was sitting there on the shelf for a while, I didn't have access to it. I couldn't prove that I could have changed and made that better. So when that next promotion came up, it wasn't mine. Well, he hasn't worked on that stuff. It's like, I didn't know. So think about how you are perceived to the world. If you are seen as someone with a fixed mindset, then expect those things to happen. Yeah, that's him. It's fine. We're just going to move on. Keep in mind when you are getting feedback, it's a painting. It's not a photo. It's not a true mirror. It is smeared with all of the human stuff. We all have biases, and we all see things or assume things, and when we're giving this feedback, there's probably truth in it. Almost guaranteed there's some truth in it. But how polluted is it? How much is it either glorified or vilified along the way from what they took in to what they're delivering to you? Are they people that like being around you? Do they like you? Are they here because they want to hurt you? That's certainly possible. So find the truth and be inquisitive is really the way we're going to get after this. Understand why they thought that, why they saw that, or what they thought they saw, and maybe be able to have that discussion. But not starting with, nope, you're wrong. No, that's not the truth. Maybe inviting them in and having that conversation. Has anyone heard of the fundamental attribution error? Couple. There's a story has anyone read The 7 Habits? Amazing book, life-changing. There's a story in The 7 Habits where the author was on a train, and there's a father and his kids, and the kids are all over the place, noisy and disruptive and all kinds of stuff. The author says, wow, what a terrible parent. And looks to this father and says, can't you control your kids? Well, the father then tells this story about how their mother was in the hospital and she had just passed away, and he's taking the kids home. It's like, oh my God, I had no idea. If you make assumptions about why people did something or why people are the way they are, you are making that error. I'm on the highway and someone's right up my tail and trying to get by me. Geez, what a jerk. Maybe there's some kind of real emergency that you're not aware of that they are trying to move through. I've been there, and you give yourself a lot of room for that. It's like, I'm just being a jerk because I need to do this because reasons. But we don't afford others that. So be conscious of that error. In every interaction you have, whether it be teams, whether it be family, wife, mother, child, doesn't matter. Every interaction that you have is an opportunity to build your relationship stronger or tear it down. So when you think about those interactions, what is your current state of being? Are you in a place that you are capable of having a calm, rational, fact-based conversation? Are you full of emotion? I've given feedback when I'm angry. Guess what? They don't like it. And it's not productive. So be conscious of that, because depending on the relationship, it might not be something that's fixable. Or it's going to take you a very long time. It's very hard to earn the trust, and it's very easy to lose it. So there's a difference between giving feedback. Everyone know what foie gras is? So for those that don't, I saw a couple of shaking heads. They force feed ducks butter to make their livers delicious. Now, it does make them delicious, but they are forcing that down their throats. So think about feedback in that way. Am I saying, I need to give you feedback, here it is, cram it down your throat? Or is it an invitation? I don't know him very well, or we have a relationship, but I don't know if he's in that place. Am I offering feedback, or am I cramming it down their throat? And those are two very different worlds that afford you a greater leniency, because if they accept your offer, then they're going to need to hear what you have to say. But if you're just giving it, so you got to read the room. Does this person look like they're ready for some feedback? I have been in meetings where, someone's giving a presentation and it's a disaster. And maybe if I'm responsible for this project and I'm getting angry and I'm agitated, and so are they. They know, they're not blind. And when we walk out of the room, that's not the time to collide and say, hey, here's some feedback. Ah! So you have to understand that right timing to do it. And from the other side, am I requesting feedback, which, by the way, I am, or am I just receiving it? Are you just giving it to me? So think about this from both sides. When you are the giver or when you are the receiver, how is that coming to you? Now, you being more trained in feedback, you can give a little more space to those that want to give it to you and don't ask, because they don't know. They don't know the right way. And perhaps afterwards you can say, hey, can I offer you some feedback on that feedback? I would have taken this much better if you had offered it to me first so I can say no. I need that opportunity. Trying does not equal succeeding. Oh my God, this is something that I struggle with. My wife offers me feedback a lot. And I accept it, I understand it, but the difference between understanding and doing and getting it right 100%, there's a lot of room for error in there. So understand that when we are delivering this feedback or when we are receiving this feedback and someone comes back with that same thing, yeah, I'm a work in progress, I'm working on that, I got a list, I am trying really hard. So again, understand that if you are delivering feedback, that you may have to do that several times. But look at the progress and give some accountability for that as well. Gentle reminders. Critical in this, now if we talk about storming, norming, performing in team-based activities as we come into a new company. So that, the previous talk was talking about the onboarding experience. How are we onboarding people in teams? Teams are immutable. I add a new person, it's a new team. Now, there are some norms in that team that will eventually be learned, but is it a welcoming, safe environment where if I fail, if I don't know something, I can come to you and say, hey, I don't understand that. Am I scorned and said, well, geez, you should have known that coming in. Why didn't we have that in the interview questions? Or, hey, we can't know everything. Let me sit down with you and help explain that to you. Do I feel safe in that environment? Because if I don't, then I'm not going to want to hear the feedback, and I'm going to want to sit in my little isolation and get my stuff done, and hopefully I get to a point where I'm more senior on the team and now I feel like I have more room. But think about those people coming into the team, whether they are junior or senior in their tenure. What is that experience, and how can we offer them that safe environment? Next is about reinforcement. If you see progress, that's a great time to pat them on the back. Hey, notice you took some of the changes I suggested. Love it. I thought it was delivered very well this time. Much better than last time. And maybe there's some room for improvement in there, and maybe they want to have that conversation, maybe they don't, but sometimes you need to go to them and say, hey, this is positive feedback. Usually you don't have to ask permission for that, but as a general rule, that's what I would suggest, but certainly patting someone on the back, they want to hear that. So find opportunities to reinforce the fact that they are doing well and that they are improving and that they are focused on these tasks. Okay, so what do we do with this talk? What do we do with these ideas? First, I want to tell you it's not easy. For those of you that have struggled with this in the past or struggle with it now, as I do, you have to re-steel yourself every day to the fact that you are not as awesome as you want to be. But I want to be awesome. I want to be great. I want to be a great presenter. I want to be a great engineer. I want to be a great security person. To do that, I require my community at work and outside of work, this conference, these people. I need to know if there are things that I can do better. I want to be better. I just want to step on the stage and I want to be amazing. But that's not always the case. So understand that it's not easy and that these things are going to knock you back. And if you've ever heard of the J curve, think about where you started before you got that feedback. And then you get that feedback. Are you going to feel good? It's natural. I'm not going to feel good about this. I'm going to sink a little lower. Now, is that a reason to give up? No. It's just that you need to understand that when you get that tough feedback, that this is a process, and I need to work my way into the future where I can now recover and get better. But it's going to knock you on your heels a little bit. This feedback is to teach you, not to label you. Don't think of it as damnation. Think of it as information. Culturally, now we talk about this all the time in DevOps. Learning culture. God. Success is great. Failure is great. It has to be okay. We have to have room to fail, either individually or as a team or as a company. We learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. So understand that and embrace it. But make sure that that's the culture of the company that you have. And if it isn't, then you may want to either consider trying to change it or finding a place where that is a comfort level for them. Because if I can't be at a place that I can fail at, then that's going to be a problem. Mutually, in our teams, norming. We have to be able to hold each other accountable. I want to make sure that if you're not holding up your end of the bargain, that we can have a serious conversation about what happened and how we can get better and how we can improve it. How can I help? But if we don't have that, then we're back to the pillow fights. They continue to make those mistakes. We continue to be in either a production down or some security incident or whatever goes on where the build's broken again. Those are things that we need to stem and say, this is not the way we do business. Stories in, stories out. When I started Agile, boy, it took us 6 months for the first time where we accepted work and we actually delivered it. And boy, did that feel good. But every time that we didn't was a learning opportunity. Why? Did we not understand the story properly? Did we not execute properly? Did we not raise that indication earlier? Again, the trusting environment. Do you feel comfortable with this? You can't appear when you're giving feedback that you have some ulterior motive. At my company, at one of my former companies, we had this mantra: assume positive intent. If you're coming to me with feedback, then I'm assuming you're doing it for the right reason. Now, if you're not, then shame on you. But if I'm taking that feedback as, why are you saying this to me? Why are you trying to knock me down? You're not going to get the impact of that feedback and what it can give you. As a leader, as a manager, this is something I did all the time and encouraged my peers to do, even individually. If there's a tough conversation with someone that isn't used to giving feedback or maybe won't take it very well, or someone that you're maybe managing up or managing out of the company, practice. It's okay. Go to someone that you trust. Say, hey, I want to have this conversation. Here's what I'm expecting. Can you play that persona? Can you help reflect back what I'm doing? Give me feedback on this feedback so you can refine it, get it right, and then go deliver it. Don't think that you have to go in there unprepared. For the really tough conversations, you should do that preparation up front. It's okay to say no, and it should be okay if you ask, can I give you some feedback? For them to say, no, not right now, or no, not at all, or maybe not on this topic. It could be that I'm working on a whole bunch of, get-betters. I don't need another one right now. I get it, not perfect. But we could do that respectfully. Yeah, I hear you, but here are my priorities. I got 3. I can't have 10. So I love that, but I need to park that. And maybe we can come back to it at some point. When you get feedback, it is natural to be defensive. You're wrong, I don't agree, etc. Or even the person that's giving you that feedback. I would say give yourself 2 scores. Now, on the feedback, yeah, it's going to hurt, and maybe it's a 5 out of 5 on bad scale. But I urge you to look at yourself and say, well, how did I accept that feedback? Because I can give myself a 1 out of 5 and say, that was excellent. I didn't react. I asked questions. I leaned into it and said, tell me more. This really hurt. And you can be honest. Look, this really hurts. I don't want to be that way. Didn't want that to come across that way. It's just the way it came out of my mouth, and what can we do about it? But help me understand this better. The more you do that, the better off you're going to be at delivering this. Gratitude. Thank the person that's giving you that feedback, no matter how hard it is. Hey, I really didn't understand that. I didn't see that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing that. And find those opportunities to reinforce the fact that you want that feedback. Understand that there's a gap between where you are, where you'd like to be, or where you even see yourself, and that you need others. You need others to show you that gap. As a leader, who here is a manager or a leader of a team? I cannot say enough how important it is for you to strengthen your team. I've had leaders that work for me, so coaching coaches is a little different than coaching players. Understanding that they need to strengthen their team. If there's an underperformer, it's going to drop the levels on everybody, and the high performers are going to leave. So understand that being kind or nice is super important on your team and your structure to say, I need to bring their level of function up, or I need to coach them out. I've had to do that several times in my career. It's not fun, but I can also tell you that if you called them today, we left on good terms. I had those conversations. This might not be the right job for you. This might not be the right role for you. We worked through a process, and then we both came to the mutual conclusion that yes, that you're right. And then how do we leave in a way that allows them to have some dignity? But don't say, hey, I just need a warm body in the seat, because it's dragging your performance down. I'm going to run through these last slides because we're a little short on time here. Shame. It's natural. I'm ashamed of what happened. I'm ashamed of what I did or what have you. Maybe not to that level, but you should be able to reframe that over time. What did you do wrong that made you who you are today? I've had a bunch of disastrous presentations, hopefully this isn't one of them, where I knew getting off the stage I didn't deliver what I wanted, I didn't hit my talking points, I didn't hit the time correctly, and you kind of feel that inside. But as I look back on those mistakes, those made me able to do what I do today. understand that you have to stress muscles to exhaustion to get them to build. So you need to build those right muscles. Lastly, as you think about feedback, as you think about change, what's the best time to plant a tree? No. Best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. What's the second best time? Now. So plant the friggin' tree. Say, hey, I want to be better. I want to be my best self. I want to be able to look back on a long career to say, I took every opportunity and every chance that I had for feedback to get better. And have that be the ethos of the team. We all want to be better. We're constructively dissatisfied. That's what another mantra of one of my last companies. We're constructively dissatisfied with where we are. Yes, we're proud of what we've done, but we know there's a way to go. So have that be your mantra. I'm proud of myself, but I'm also constructively dissatisfied. So I also invite you, personally, to give me feedback on this presentation, the thoughts in it. I'm happy to share the reading list. Some of this is by experience. Some of this is through some research. So I thank you again for your time and attention. Thank you.